Hi, Tara and Yuri. I'm Danielle. I'm with Temple of Geek. Thank you so much for speaking with me today. I'm really excited to talk about your upcoming project.
Our pleasure.
Same. Thank
Thank
you. Thank you
you.
for taking the time. We're
Yeah, of
excited.
course.
Somebody wants to know
Yay.
about it.
So my first question is kind of about the inspiration for Topsy McGee. I know that the characters in the world are based off of a short film that the both of you created and starred in about 10 years ago. But I'm curious about what the inspiration was for this as a whole to begin with.
It actually started further back than that.
That's true. We were talking about it in trying to prep ourselves to actually be able to answer some questions. And we realized that we came up with the idea for Topsy like years before we actually did the short film.
Yeah.
Because what happened was we've been married 23 years almost. And early on in our marriage, because we both like stories, kind of like you would tell a little kid a story, we would tell each other stories. So we would just be like on a bus or on a train or whatever, just telling each other stories to sort of pass the time and entertain each other. And we came up with this character, this like intrepid, plucky explorer heroine. And we both liked her. She was fun, and the world was steampunk, and it was enjoyable to just sort of play in that world.
Yeah.
And then, as a very sweet present,
When we were at a convention, I found an artist that I really liked, and I commissioned for Tara's birthday a piece of artwork of her as that character. And that little did I know at that time, sort of the domino effect of it, because once we got it, came out great. And once we had it, it was like that character.
she became real suddenly.
Yeah, she just wasn't somebody that we had in our heads.
Yeah.
She took on a life of her own, which led then to us commissioning a
The
costumer
costume based on the picture.
based on the
Yeah.
picture, because so that she could wear it, at first
Yeah.
just to
Like go to a masquerade party.
masquerade balls, some really cool masquerade balls here in Los
And then that's
Angeles.
the costume that I have in the short film because I now had this beautiful costume. Of course I was going to wear it.
I love that.
And so then that was the short film took on its own life, and it was really fun because we had stunts and we did all sorts of really fun. We built the
It
whole
was a fun experiment, a whole
set, an airship set that we had to
Yeah,
do, which
it was
exciting.
madness.
But then from that, actually a friend of ours who is a writer for television,
Yeah, he created the show Dan Versus a bunch of years back.
Chris Pearson.
Chris Pearson.
He came to us and said, "You guys, I really like what you're doing, and I really like these characters. Would you be okay if I wrote the like hour-long TV live action pilot for the show?" And we're like, "You want to make the pilot? Okay, go on." We were very excited about that. And he wrote a stellar pilot, which we then shopped around with him and the rest of the team from the short.
But
at
it
the time,
it was a bad time for steampunk and television. Like everybody was trying to crack it. A big studio had shot a pilot, and it was just savaged. And so nobody was paying attention to that aesthetic, which was
so it
bad
dwindled
for us at the time.
because
But
we were like, well, we're not going to do that. But we still she still was like, hey, like as a character, she was still like, we were still excited about it. And he had the brilliant idea. He's like, well, wait a second. If we want to tell multiple adventures of this character, like doing whatever she's doing, that's kind of what a comic book is. Like each issue, it's like a little serial, right? Like it's a little serialized story. And I was like, oh my God, you're right. And it's so aesthetic because with a steampunk world like this, part of it is like how great it all looks.
Yeah.
And so that's exactly what we started doing. We were like, we'll make a comic book, which we've never done before, and we don't know how you do. And so
it was a learning experience for sure.
Yeah, but we also had some friends.
Yeah, we realized that it wasn't something that we knew how to do. We made the short film because we know how to make things like that. But while we've grown up reading comic books, we've never had to make one.
Yeah.
And so we yet another contact that we had met at going to conventions, Comfort and Adam, as they're known in the comic book world, Comfort, Love, and Adam Withers. They're artists and comic book publishers. And we really liked them, and we liked that they were a couple, who worked together, and we liked their comics. And so we went to them and we said, hey, we want to do this, but we really don't know.
Can you like mentor us or guide us somehow, please?
Could we sort of come to you and could you guide us or shepherd us through this process?
And they did. I mean, they helped us get contacts and look through portfolios for various artists and colorers. And like, they really did sort of help us see how the whole process worked, although we made a lot of mistakes,
So many mistakes.
because we didn't know what we were doing. And even though, we were able to ask them for help, we didn't want to ask them every 5 minutes. So we would make decisions and move forward and then realize the error of our ways and then have to fix those mistakes repeatedly. Sometimes it's fine.
Which is what you do if you want to get better.
But it was cool because in that process of learning the new skill, even though it was taking us a while and life happened and we had a kid and like, you know, things are happening, and the artist.
Oh my God, Topsy's been our kid longer than our actual kid.
Don't tell him that. No, Topsy's who I would have become if I hadn't had a kid. No, okay, I don't know. Fair enough. If I were British and maybe clever and more witty, it's fine. But
wish fulfillment. This is all about wish fulfillment.
But what was interesting is during the process of making this, like the artist that we had first started working with for that first issue, he kind of blew up and his career was taking off. And we realized that we weren't going to be able to do these because we had kind of crafted out these first 3 episodes, the first 3 issues. We weren't going to be able to do it in a timely enough manner to like release the comic book and then have the next issue coming out the next. Like it wasn't going to be sustainable as far as a timeline for what was going on. So we had to make some changes. We ended up deciding that each issue would have its own artist. So it had its own style. But then ultimately we were like, well, rather than trying to release it and then not knowing when the next one's actually going to be completed because the process is taking longer than we thought, then Yuri once again had the great idea of like, well, what if it were a trade paperback graphic novel? Like then
it's 3 issues, but they all came out as one.
It's released as one. And yes.
Oh my God, it's the comic. I never realized that it's the comic book version of binging a TV show.
It is.
So we decided to like everybody binge Topsy McGee.
Right.
We made the trade paperback. And so that's kind of how we got to where we are now.
And this is, we just got our galley copy.
It's so shiny.
Beautiful.
I love it. So pretty.
It's so cool to like have a thing like in physical space.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so real now.
Just real. But so that's kind of the whole story. Although now, which I don't know why we didn't contemplate this earlier on, because we are known for our voice work and we've done animated series. Like why we didn't think of turning it into an animated series. I think
pitching it that way as opposed to a live action.
That's the thing that we're contemplating now is like, what if it were
now, especially that we can see it in this format. We're like, maybe it would
animated series
would work in that way, or maybe we just do comic books. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know where she's going to take us next. We're just letting her
take the
drive the
drive the airship.
The airship, the airship.
Well, I love you ending on the possibility or thinking about pitching it as an animated series, because when I was reading the 3 issues, I was like, oh, this would be really great as an animated series. That's awesome. There's a section where there are multiple panels showing different kind of adventures they go on during this mission. And I was like, this would be great. Like each one kind of have its own little episode. So I'm a big proponent of that.
Oh, awesome. Yay.
I would love that.
Thank you, Danielle.
But kind of going off of everything that you said there, the first thing I noticed when I was reading it was that it kind of felt like if Evelyn from The Mummy was the intentional main character of The Mummy instead of Rick.
Well, we love The Mummy.
Yeah,
me too.
That's right on point.
Except for the 3rd film. I really like the 3rd film, but yeah. But that is a great point, because we did want to mess with that dynamic in that, and you know, Sean sort of on paper is the hero, but he's absolutely not the hero of their story.
Right. She always has to come in and kind of like fix the thing.
Yeah, he's sort of a bumbling hero, and he has his strengths, and luckily their relationship is such that it's not really a point of contention. Like it's
he doesn't feel emasculated,
but
and she doesn't feel like, oh, I have to like. It's just how they.
Because then you would wonder why they're together in the first place. But
it's mutual admiration. It's just that she's just very good at.
He has a different way of doing things.
Exactly.
It's kind of like us.
I love that. It's like it's they're life partners, but they're also friends, and they respect the strengths of one another and rely on that. And I really liked seeing that throughout the graphic novel.
Well, I'm so glad that you got that off the page, because it's always hard, I think, whenever you create anything, whatever the medium is, like as the creator, it's inside of you, and it's so hard to always translate what you're seeing or what you're feeling or what you're imagining from inside of you out into the world. And so it's so exhilarating to get the feedback that like it landed, like you got what we were trying to make, which is just so fulfilling as a creator to be like, yes, you're me and you got it. We got it. We're on the same page, which is fun.
That is always exciting. And it's also exciting, I think, as a reader to give that feedback and have it, be told that was intentional, and that
Yeah.
was exactly what
Yeah,
it was. So thank
definitely.
you for that as well.
Of course. Yeah.
Another thing that I really liked from it was, even though this is a very adventure-y story, it has that classic steampunk slight otherworldliness to it, which fits in great with the end of the 19th century. So I really like those placed there. It also doesn't shy away from, I guess, kind of the realities of, like, say, colonialism or the risks that come along with adventure. And so I guess I kind of wondered what, if you kept anything in the back of your mind when you were creating this addition to Topsy's story, or what your narrative goals were, I guess, when kind of going about it.
I mean, I love that you also picked up on that. I mean, you're really
You're
this almost
attuned as
feels
a
like
reader.
this almost feels like a setup. Yeah, it's we want this without I mean, comic books have always been political in one way or another. And while that was not our goal here, it does telling a story. Genre has always been a great way to couch larger stories.
Yeah.
And so it was inevitable that that was going to make it in there somehow.
Because
And
we're living in very tricky times right now.
yeah. And it's nice to be able to comment on that in a way that is also very adventurous and fun.
Yeah.
And this seems like a sort of a very ripe for fertile ground to explore a lot of stories that have both adventure and commentary. So
But also, I mean, that's part of like history allows us to learn, and we're in a time right now where we better learn from some history. But if we can take that history and turn it a little on its head and make it a little more magical and put a little sugar in the tea that we're drinking to like help it go down easier,
Yeah.
I think it allows us to, without bopping the reader over the head, put some information in there, like you're picking up, and have some actual literary characters and have some actual historical characters, but also let our world sort of stand alone for this storytelling, and hopefully let some of these ideas kind of seep in without kind of punching you in the face.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes it relatable, but also just like really enjoyable and kind of a way to escape a little bit still too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because also like we live in a day and age where you need a little escape.
Some of that.
Yeah.
Very important.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you mentioned working with artists, and as you also said, there are three separate artists for each of the three issues. What was that like? You said that you hadn't really gone into this before, and so you kind of relied on them a little bit to help you. But what was the communication process like throughout all of that?
Thankfully, we had Comfort and Adam as
Yeah.
sort of a go-between who could help us communicate with artists, because we're not always like, when we wanted something different or we wanted something specific, we didn't always know the language or what was okay to ask for and what was wrong to try to put on an artist. But first off, it was it was overwhelming to think of having to find an artist. I mean, especially
There's not millions of great artists out there,
Well,
but like,
and
how
that's
do you
what-
find the person that can do the thing that you are looking for?
and that was the overwhelming part. There are so many good artists out
Yeah.
there.
We went through hundreds of portfolios, like
Yeah.
because we were hiring all these people to do the work. Like, there are so many talented artists out there, and
Right.
any of them could probably have created an amazing
Right.
book.
Thank God for DeviantArt, by the
Oh,
way.
yeah.
DeviantArt,
Yeah.
realized would be such a good resource
Yeah.
as was here. But yeah, finding sort of that right, what was going to be right. And I don't even mean the best. I mean, what was the right fit for what we were doing and for the story and for who we are as people. And again, it was great to have Comfort and Adam sort of
Yeah.
help us navigate those waters. But it was
but
exciting.
It was like, I mean, we never physically met these people in real
No, that's
life.
true. We've never
Like, it
met
was
any
all
of these
done
artists.
online. It was emails, and then maybe we transfer sometimes. Like, it was all just like digital content going back and forth, which is also why literally having this in my hand, I'm like, but it was on a computer this whole time.
Believe it. Yeah.
Real.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't like we met with somebody at the coffee shop and they sketched something for me and then handed it. Like, none of it was tangible until this literally came in the mail 3 days ago.
Yeah.
It just,
Yeah.
it just was a different process. But also, if you can open yourself up to the fact the world is a huge place, and there may be a very talented artist in Manila or in Edinburgh or wherever in the world that you have never met or come in contact with that could perfectly suit whatever the project you are working on. If you can sort of let your mind open up enough to do that, it really makes the possibilities endless, because there's a way to connect the right people.
Yeah.
Just
and it's such a
the world
collaborative.
smaller and
Yeah.
creative.
I mean, comic books are inherently collaborative,
Yeah.
as is most of the work that we do, honestly.
Yeah.
And we love that. We love working with a team.
Yeah. Yeah. It makes it less lonely and someone to answer your questions, like you said, and help you
Right.
figure it out.
And often they'll come up, we think we know what's right. We think we know what'll work best and what we want. And then, you know, a good artist or a good editor or, you know, any of these positions will come back with something that wasn't any of what we had thought of.
No,
or
like the one
asked
that's
for,
there's a big spread.
and it's better than any of that
Oh yeah,
stuff.
like this was supposed to be one panel. Like there was just gonna be like a panel with like an I forget exactly how you described it, but it was just like a noticing that the airship was whatever, and it was gonna be one panel on a page. And the artist was like, "This is what I think you need to do." And we were like, "Oh, yes, this is what we need to do." But
You were exactly right, sir.
that's because somebody who's really skilled doing what they're doing has the ability to see something that somebody who's not used to it wouldn't even imagine. And that's why what is it? The rising tide level ship? Lifts all ship, not level
lifts all airships.
Yeah, lifts all airships. Thank you. I knew you got together. But yeah, so like that's why collaborating with people outside of yourself is important to learn from and make your product
and to be flexible enough that, you know, if it's different than how you imagined in your head, that's probably a good thing.
Yeah. But also be able to say, this isn't telling the story. Like we did have to go back.
No, there were a couple
times where we're like, this is unclear.
work,
Maybe we didn't explain it correctly, but this is what needs to happen. And, you know, picking and choosing battles is always important.
Or learning to script in a different format too, because we've, you know, written other things, but comic books are different.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that because I went to both of your websites because I'm familiar with your voice work, but I went to your websites and you do so much else that I hadn't heard of yet, and I'm really excited to dig into them. But
awesome.
you've both written books, various different types, and there's screenwriting credits I've seen also, especially for you, Yuri. And I'm just curious what it was like going from that to this creative process. And you mentioned that it took some time to kind of get used to it, but was it anything like you expected? Was it different? Were you able to rely on past experience with other mediums to do this?
Yes and no, because I think whenever you have created before, like and completed something, whatever it is, it doesn't matter what the format is or the style, the finishing of something helps your brain sort of go, okay, I can do, like I can just make, right? I can do something. So then it opens up possibilities for new things that you've never done before. So like we happen to have a publishing company and a production company. And like you said, we're authors together and separately, and, you know, we're filmmakers, like we do a lot of different things. But at one point in our life, we'd never done any of that. And so the very first thing that we ever did, which I'm sure was separate, you know, you off with your friends making movies and me, you know, doing whatever I did. But the very first time you achieve something and you actually complete it and finish it, even if it totally sucks and the world doesn't love it, like the finishing of it, like makes your brain sort of step up a notch and go, okay, well, I did that. So now I can do it again better, or I can do a different thing and try that. And then it kind of opens the doors and the opportunities start to like present themselves. So that was sort of one level to that. But then the second level is we are already storytellers. Like that's something we're very passionate about. And it kind of doesn't matter what the medium is that you're telling the story in, whether it's film, comic book, a story that's like a novel, a dance piece, like it doesn't matter what the medium is, it's still about story and what you're trying to express to create some sort of evocative experience for the participant, in this case, the reader. Somebody has to participate with the story for it to resonate.
In this case, specifically you Danielle.
But like, and so like, it really just boiled down to story. So even though the technical steps we were taking was slightly different, we knew that you had to get from origin of idea to how to tell that idea to like what the idea, like there are certain steps you kind of have to take to get it into fruition. And the details of what those steps are is very easily discovered by either asking someone or going on the internet or like reading a book. Like the how is less important than the what or the why. And knowing that from our previous encounters, I think allowed us to just be like a little forgiving of like, well, we messed that one up, so we'll give them extra money and we'll have them redo that whole page. You know, whatever the thing was that we had to fix, we were very willing to like pick up our bootstraps and keep going because we recognize that like, okay, that's a minor setback, but we know where we're going. We're going to make this. We're going to finish it.
I think all our storytelling that came before informed this in that at the heart, it's all the same stuff. And then in each medium, you have to learn sort of what to do differently, much in the same way that, voice acting and on-camera acting and theater acting, it's, at the heart, it's the same
All
thing,
acting.
but you got to do some different stuff for each one to make it work in that medium. And, for us, it was just learning about that. And, for example, with back to the scripting, I'm used to writing scripts for, that we would
television
film.
or film,
Television or
feature,
film. But comics requires a slightly different thing. I mean, because it's a different medium. Like I would normally just write some stuff and then be like, now it's somebody else's job to figure out how to make that look that way.
You also have more space.
Work,
like in a novel, you could take paragraphs to describe things.
Or a play, you just write dialogue and dialogue and dialogue and dialogue.
It's just it's a different way of expressing the content. And with comic book writing specifically that we discovered is it's so succinct. I can't even say it. So succinct. Like you have to really pare everything down that you need to describe to the artist what the illustration needs to be so that that's clear. But the dialogue, you cannot mess around with the dialogue because you only have these tiny little bubbles that they all have to fit. And like you can't take pages and pages to unless it's just like
nobody wants to read a comic book that's just blocks of text. And so you're telling a story, frame by frame for each page. And while it is a collaboration, I certainly in no way, when I was writing it, told the artist what everything had to be and what it had to look like. But I had to consider that was how it was going to be presented. So we
did have to kind of break it down into like, on this page, I think this is what goes here, and these might be different blocks, but like I trust that if you want to do a spread but also we have to be in the constraints of how long a comic book is. It can't be 3,000 pages.
Right.
Like there were things that we had to.
It's expensive. That like the per page breakdown to create a comic book it's prohibitive after all.
Because you're paying artist and the ink and the colorist and the letterer and the and then it's printing cost. Like it's not
formatting, all that stuff.
It definitely.
But it was a learning curve, but it was totally worth it.
Yeah. Does that feel kind of rewarding that there's still things for you to learn in the creative industry and that it kind of exciting almost that opens these new doors for
sometimes frustrating, but definitely at the end of the day exciting.
Sometimes frustrating and overwhelming because you're like, oh man, I've built this train track so many times up different mountains
to start over.
And then you got to go back to it and remember that nobody knows anything in this industry.
And then you remember how nice it is when you get to the top of the mountain and you're like, oh, all right, this is awesome. We did it. So like you just keep rebuilding a new train track, and sometimes you get to reuse the train tracks you built, and sometimes you're like, well, I guess we're doing it again.
Learn how to build a new train track.
I know.
So my final question kind of goes off of that. Do you foresee more comics in your future or more Topsy McGee stories?
Definitely yes, Topsy McGee, because she's still pulling on her ear. She's like, hey guys, I got this stuff, but I don't know what the next medium is going to be. And I think that's going to inform what the story we might tell. So I think if we can decide if it is going to be another graphic novel or if it's going to be more comic issues, if we can figure out a way to like speed up the process, or is it become an animated series, or do we make a feature, or like whatever the style that's going to inform to us what the next story that we can tell with Topsy will be. Or
I think it's safe to say that this is not us getting Topsy out of our system. There's still so many places we want to explore with it.
Yeah, we still want to share tea with Topsy.
That's true.
And maybe other graphic novels for like that is something that I will say now it's open to the possibility in our storytelling. When we have an idea, is it better suited for a graphic novel or a short film or a feature or a novel? Like we're just opening the page of like what our options are for when we come up with an idea, how will it best be expressed? Which is fun because then I think that's also exciting too for audiences to feel like the content is being delivered in the best possible way. And so when you feel like you're more proficient, like, because obviously if you're, what is it? I'm making bad metaphors. The person that does a hammer, like if you're a carpenter, you're going to come at something with a saw and a hammer all the time. And that's all you're going to use as your tool. But like, if you feel like you can use all the tools in the tool bag, you can then create more. I'm doing a terrible metaphor.
It was working for me.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah, I wish I were as witty as Topsy is in real life. But
Just
just
why we create characters like that.
But in a way, it's this idea that like it has opened up more possibilities, another choice, another branching opportunity, that when we have an idea, now we can go, well, does it fit? Which is it suited best to?
Yeah.
And then how do we express it? Because I have a novel idea that I've been thinking about for a while, and I'm like, what if I did like a half novel, half graphic novel? So like it's partial novel and partial graphic, like, because now it's a whole new possibility of like, well, how do I tell the story visually, but also with words, and like, is it interactive? And it opens possibility, which I think is exciting as a creator to be like, great, where is this going to take me? Because what else can we do?
Yeah.
Well, if you do that half novel, half graphic novel, I'd be very interested, because I have a PhD in text and image studies and
Really?
like mixed media formats and stuff, and I really love
that's
that.
amazing.
So that
oh, well, then
sounds
I'll
like a
have to
great
contact you
concept.
and see if you'll be my mentor, like Madam, because I don't have a degree in it. I'm just like, what if you did this?
But no, that sounds amazing to me. And I'm really looking forward to hopefully more Topsy stories in the future, because I really enjoyed this graphic novel.
I'm so
And
glad.
thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me. I really appreciated it. And
you for
good
wanting
luck
to-
with Topsy in the future, and all of your other endeavors with your production company and your publishing company. Everything just sounds really amazing.
Oh, thank you so much. I
Thank
appreciate
you so
it.
much, Danielle.
Yeah.